What do we mean by immortal? It could mean that we are in some way naturally immortal, that we have the propensity toward immortality because that's the way in which we're fashioned and created at the beginning of our creation. We're designed that way, and so we will just persist and exist on quite naturally, barring, well, humans can't take us out, but maybe a unique human being could take an additional step and snuff us out of existence. That would be one way of looking at it. Typically, what is meant by conditional immortality is that not only is something additionally added to the person, whether it be a soul or soul body itself, something is added as a gift to sustain them, without which they would just stop existing altogether, like the damned do. They just stop existing. But that's actually even distinct from, there's a nuanced distinction there between that and what would naturally occur if nothing were touched or left, or if everything was left untouched, and saying God actually has to do something additional or do some additional unique action to actually snuff the soul out of existence actively in some way, rather than having to actively add something so that the soul does not just go out of existence. Those are two distinctions. And I haven't spelled out which one is right or true or whatever. I haven't said that. And so, but those are important distinctions. Those are important nuances. But nonetheless, this doctrine of that we are souls and that we are immortal souls is not only consistent philosophically with the resurrection of the body, but it provides a logical coherence to the resurrection of the body that's important, and that's been affirmed throughout much of church history by the major sub-traditions that actually comprise Catholic Christianity, as I just read from these symbols of the faith and these creedal statements, or these confessional statements. I mean, there's more. We could read the Larger Emden Confession in 1551, where it states that the substance that we're talking about is actually immortal, referring to the image of God as being the image of God was in Adam at the beginning, by virtue of which he was immortal. We could look at the Heidelberg Catechism of Faith, which actually ties the soul to the image, and describes the image as immortal, holy, wise, as images of the Lord himself. The Westminster Confession of Faith actually bears this out as well, that we are immortal souls, even, it states, quote, immortal souls, end quote. The Synopsis Pure Theology of the Reformed tradition, the Leiden Synopsis, actually affirms that our images are souls and that those souls are immortal by nature in some way. And so on the surface, this is something that is actually quite important to the tradition and important to the logic of the afterlife that's being spelled out. And so it's important to point that out. But again, that is distinct from at least some versions of conditionalism, and there are more refined issues and nuances that need to be spelled out in that context, in conversation with the wider church teaching on what is precisely meant by the immortality of the soul. What they're typically after, and what he may have implied from some of the things I've said, or discerned from what I've said, is that, in fact, even the damned, the condemned, are by nature immortal, and as a result, they will exist forever, and they will never go out of existence. So that's an interesting issue, and that's one worth discussing further. But I did want to clarify the dialectic that I was entering into as I was affirming not only the fact that we are souls, but the fact that our souls are, in some sense, immortal. That is affirmed by the wider church tradition, contra what somebody like Oscar Coleman and others are commonly advocating for now.